Greetings, 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 everyone. Steve, Paracord of Kindness. How you doing today? Hopefully your weaving's been happy. Okay, what I have for you today is a follow-up to the video I just put on YouTube. In the last one, I showed you how to weave the Widowmaker. In this one, I'm going to show you how to do the side spiral stitch, as I call it, or the side stitch. Here's one I've done. You can probably see this one better because of the contrast of the colors. But it's simply this red is going down the side, on either side. That's two separate pieces. It's not a hard stitch at all. And once you learn the basic concept of how this is done, you can apply this to many weaves out there. But if you want to see how I do it, stick around because we'll get right to it, folks. Okay, weavers, we're ready to start stitching. But first things first, as always, a shameless plug. That is a stitched, modified, or inverted Zawbar. Got a tutorial on how to do this one. I'll put it in the cards and the description below. This one right here, this is a stitched Hongren, spelled H-O-N-G-R-E-N. I have a video on how to do the weave and how to do the stitching. Also, cards, description below. Okay, that's it. Let's see. Credit where credit's due. This design, the Widowmaker, was originally done by Jason Lake. He does not have a YouTube channel as far as I know, but he does have an Instagram account. And it's called Lake Bros, or Brothers, Lake Bros Paracord. I'll put the link for that in the description below. Okay, what I'm going to show you how to do today is what I have termed the side spiral stitch. This can be done to a lot of bracelets. There are a lot of bracelets out there that this simple stitch pattern can be put on. But today we're going to put it on this Widowmaker. Okay, I'll say this first off. Depending on the specific weave you're going to put this on will determine, for me anyway, whether I will use standard microcord to stitch with or 95. And I'll show you what I mean. Sometimes if you use excuse me, sometimes I'm trying to see if I've got one around. Give me just a second. Give me just a second. Let me look, see if I have something. Don't. Okay, I'll show you some examples, I guess, of this, and I'll just explain what I'm talking about. Okay, all right. Let me zoom in so we can see this. If you've seen me do this side spiral stitch before, like I say, it's pretty easy to do for the most part. It's pretty easy, and it adds that pop to a bracelet that all stitching does, and it's pretty easy. Once you learn how to do it on one bracelet, it's pretty easy to adapt it to do it on multiple bracelets. Okay, but sometimes you do it in microcord, sometimes you do it in 95. Okay, I'll show you. The one we're going to do today, the Widowmaker, here's an example of the side spiral. This red, this running, this spiraling around this outer core strand all the way down. So that's one big long piece. And then this side also is one separate long piece, right? So the two stitches on either side are two separate pieces of Imperial Red 95, right? Okay. But on this one, we're going to use 95, right? Here's an example of one. This is a modified concrete jungle. This is a seedless weave, and it has this same side spiral stitch. But this one, I did it in, let me look at it. Oh no, that's done in 95 also. That's 95 also. Now here's one. This is a also a seedless weave. This is, what is this one? The Rock Modified. And that side spiral is in 95. But the center is in microcord. Okay, now explain to you why. Sometimes you can use microcord to do this. But I have found it better if you use 95. The reason is, let me see. Hang on, I think I actually have an example of, let me see, where are they at? You know, I may have put them in a package. I had somebody want to buy a... Give me a second, folks. Hang on just a second. Okay, here's one right here. Yeah. Now let's see, where's the other one? I thought I had another one. Well, it's the same weave, but on one I did it in 95, and one I did it in microcord. Yeah, here it is, right here. And this will show you the difference that I'm trying to, that I hope that you'll see. Okay. Yeah. Okay, this right here, this is this one is called Wave. And this is also a seedless weave. But if we look, I'm going to see if you can see this. If you look, I did this side spiral stitch in acid purple. And that's a piece of microcord. Right? And if you look at it, now granted, there's not much contrast between that acid purple and the black, so it already is hard to see. But the fact that it's microcord, what happens when you put it in there and you kind of pull it and give it, you know, give it a little tug to tighten it up, it will drop down. It will fall in the crack, is the way I try to explain it, in between them two pieces of black 550. And sometimes it will disappear and you won't be able to see it, right? Now, like I say, now here's one I did. I did this one. Make sure. Yes, I did this same weave, same bracelet, but I did it in that side spiral in 95, right? And it's more visible because it's not that thin microcord that goes in that crack, it falls in the crack and gets lost. It's more visible, right? But when you do it, if it's one of these weaves where these wraparounds on the outer core strand are close together, you got to be mindful because it starts to get tight as you do it or whatever, and it can affect the sizing. But on one like we're going to do today, it's not going to make that much of a difference because just the nature of the way this thing is woven together, these gaps right here are quite big in between these wraparounds. So you actually can see the core strand, that outer core strand is exposed and you can see it. Now if you use a piece of microcord, no problem, it's going to go there, you're going to see it, no big deal. But in order to make it even more visible, more pop, more contrast, if you will, I'm going to use a piece of 95 on this. Like I say, it just depends on the nature of the weave, what it looks like and all that, as to why I would use micro or 95. But in this case, because that gap is big and visible, it's not going to affect the sizing or anything like that. I'm going to go with 95 this time. And I'm going to go ahead and go with charcoal gray. I thought about using this darker gray that 550 accents in, which is anthracite. I thought about going with that, and I was like, nah, let's just go ahead and go with the charcoal gray. Okay, so let's get all this stuff out of our way for right now. And I'll show you how to do this. And this one is not hard. If you've seen any of my stitching videos, you've probably seen me do this. And that's what I have come to call this, a side spiral. Because all it is, and you'll be able to see it better on this bracelet, I think. Excuse me. A handy dandy laser paracord point. If you look right here, that cord that's running lengthwise, that's the outer core strand on this side of the bracelet. And you can, it's exposed in between these wraparounds, right? And you can see it. All we're going to do is spiral around that outer core strand, working our way down, following these gaps. Make sense? Now, depending, some bracelets, if you look, this is the top. This is where I started weaving and working my way down. If you look at these little wraparound, black wraparound pieces, you can see that they're angled down this way. Okay? On some bracelets, they're angled this way. Right? So depending on which way they're angling determines which way you're going to do this. But once you see the basic technique, it's easy. You can adapt it to any bracelet. Okay? But I'll show you how I start this off. Like always, we're going to anchor it on the back side where we've anchored everything else. So we're going to come from down here, and we're going to go up through, up under those two pieces of dark gray anthracite. Bam. We'll run it up through there. And the thing is, this is usually a pretty easy stitch. It's pretty quick. It doesn't take a lot of cord, and it's minimal material, minimal labor, and it creates a very nice result. Okay, so what we're going to do from right here, all we're going to do is I'm going to just come across in this gap, around the outer edge of this core strand, and I'm going to go through on the inner side of that exposed core strand to the back. Okay, but here's the but. When I go through, like I say, the way these black pieces are wrapped and they're at an angle, they're all at a downward angle, I'm going to wrap around here. I'm going to go through, but when I go through, I'm going to run this needle like this. That way, when it comes out the back side, it's going to come out in this next gap down. And it's going to run around the outside edge, go on the inner side of that outer core strand at an angle, and it's going to come out back here. It'll make sense once you see this. If you've never seen me do this, it'll make sense. Me trying to explain it and use the correct words, yeah, it gets gets lost. But when you see it and you actually do it, you're like, oh, yeah, I see how this works. Right, so this is what we're going to end up with right here. Right? But I'm going to run it through right here. This outer core strand that's exposed, I'm going to go on the inner side right in here. But you see how I'm going and I'm coming out that next gap down. Like consider this the first gap. Now we're going to come out in the next gap down, the second gap. Right? So once we do it, we pull our slack through. Right? Now we're going to do it again. We're coming out right here in the gap that you come out in on the back. You just follow it around that outer core strand. I go just on the inside of that core strand. And again, you're doing it at an angle. To go we're following this gap around, but when we go through, we come out at the next gap down that direction. That's all it is. And you just repeat. Lather, rinse, repeat. Uh-oh. About to get tangled up. Mindful of your twist. It has kind of got a twist in it. And then when you get it like that, just give it a little snug. And that's the effect it's going to end up giving. We do it again. We're in this gap. We follow that gap around, and we go through just on the inside of that outer exposed core strand at the angle. And we come out in the next gap down. We pull our excess through. See, it's all twisted up. We gotta get the twist out. Make sure it kind of seats down in that gap where you want it, and then once you get it there, just give it a little tug, and bam. That's it. That's all there is to this one. And you do one side, and then you do the other side. Now what I'm going to do, okay, since this has got the run down this side and a run down this side, I'm going to finish this run out and finish this run out. When I get down here to the very end on this second run, I'll come back and I'll show you how I finish it off, and we'll do our final cut and burn. And considering this is not for my wrist, I can't do the put it on my wrist trial by fire to make sure it fits. But we do have our handy dandy manual that's marked with the sizes, so we can put it on here to trial by fire on this to see if it fits. Alright? But that's just a quick, simple, easy stitch. Like I say, it's an easy stitch, and once you learn that technique of just spiraling around and running at an angle basically opposite to the angle of that piece of 550 that's wrapping around and going behind there and coming out in the next gap down, once you learn how to do this, the basics of this, it can be adapted and done to so many bracelets. Especially there's a lot of seedless weaves for any of you who see this tutorials that are on all over Instagram or YouTube. Some are on Instagram, or if you have some of his books, this stitching can be put on those bracelets. But there are a lot of bracelets out there that this can be done. The stitch, side spiral stitch, can be done, and it just adds that little extra pop. Like I say, it's not a hard one to do. Doesn't take a lot of time, and it doesn't take a lot of material, but it adds so much to the bracelet. But stick around, and I'll finish it out, and I'll come back and I'll show you how I finish the entire bracelet, and we'll do the trial by fire. Okay, weavers, I got it stitched out to the end, both sides, right? And I told you I'd come back and I'd show you how I finish it up, and we'll do a final cut and burns and the trial by fire. Alright, so what we're going to do here, let's say, zoom in. I'm going to make this one quick. Zoom in, get the light over here. All we're going to do, we've got, let's see, 2 more wraps, looks like. Right down here. We'll follow it around there, and we'll do this last one also. So, follow it around. And down here at the end, it's a little tight. Right. Just like we were doing on the other side, just everything's kind of reversed, mirror imaged. The angle's different on this side, but it's the same principle, right? Right there. Give it a little tug, and then we're going to do this last one right here. And just like when we did that other stitching, we're going to come out pretty much in that same area. Excuse me. Right? Give it a little snug down. And then we're going to run it up, back weave it, anchor it where we've anchored all the rest of them. Tilt that buckle back so you can get a straight shot. So then tilt it back so you can get a straight shot to go through there. That's tight. Pull it through. Alright. We're going to cut it a little short. Leave us a tail like we always do. Get our needle out of the way. I'm going to go ahead, even though I'm about to cut it off, I'm still going to do it. It's a habit, force of habit. It's a good habit to get into. Okay, now, what we're going to do, like we always do, before we do our final cut and burn, like I've said before, the way I do this, and the reason, is I try to get them all together on the back side. They're going to be on the back side, but I try to get them all together, right? That way, when I do the cut and then I burn them, they all burn and all that nylon melts together into one lump. And I flatten it out. That way, it's not going to work itself back out over time and wear and tear, right? Okay. Same thing down here. I've got quite a lot down here, but that's okay. So what we're going to do before we actually do it, we're going to flip it over and we're going to look at it and make sure everything looks right. Make sure everything's pulled tight. And what I'll usually do is grab each one of them, each one of the cords, the 550, the micro, the 95, the 275 if I've used that, whatever. I'll make sure everything looks straight. Okay, that looks good. Now, I've said this before. You got to do it, have whatever you use to smooth it out. Whatever you're going to use to smooth it out, have it ready. That way you're not having to dig for it while your molten plastic is cooling off and hardening. What I'll do is I'll take these cords and I'll try to bend them up. That way they're sticking up and they're not laying flat. So when I go to burn them, I'm not getting next to the bracelet. That's a little thing I've learned through experience, right? And I know a lot of people when they start doing this, they try to cut it. They cut them too close. Don't cut them so close. You got to have something there to heat. You see what I'm saying? You got to have something there to get hot and melt. And you want to melt those cuts, not the bracelet, right? Okay. Now, I'll hold it at an angle. I'll sit here and I'll melt them. And I'm going to get them all good and gooey melted. That way all of it joins together. Give it a second to cool. And then reach up there with your finger and make sure that it's smooth. You don't want any little hard burrs. That feels good. Okay, now we'll go to the other side. Go down here to the bottom. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to look at it and make sure everything looks good. And we're going to flip it over. And we're going to each one of these strands we're going to pull to make sure they're tight. And again, we're going to take them. I'm going to take them and I'm going to bend them back over themselves in the attempt that when I cut them, they'll be sticking out as opposed to laying flat. Right, now there's a lot of these here. There's 3 pieces of 550, 2 pieces of 95, and a piece of micro. So this is going to be a lot. But don't cut it so close that you can't burn it. What I say? We'll do it the same way. Get them all hot and molten so that they all kind of melt together on the end there. And then we come back and we smooth it across there. Now because I'll show you, there's so many of these pieces there, it does create this little lump on the back. Now you can do it, this is the way I've chosen to do this. You can either run them all through the same spot and you'll have that big lump. Or you can try to, when you back weave them, you can try to back weave them into different places. But then you'll have a whole bunch of different burns. But I like doing it this way. And you got to take that into consideration when you size the bracelet. That's the downfall of it. But the plus is that this bracelet will last longer. That will highly unlikely that will come work its way out of how it's been back woven under there through time, wear and tear. Because I know there were bracelets I made in the very beginning that I did, and I wore them and I wore them and I wore them, and they eventually come loose. And they start getting loose and unraveling. And we don't want that. Okay, but there we go. That's what it looks like. Okay, let's get all our clean the work surface off. Get everything out of the way. Alright. That turned out pretty good. Black, anthracite, and then the stitching is all charcoal gray. It's micro in the middle and 95 on the edges. That is a stitched Widowmaker. Now, like I say, this is not for my wrist. This is for a wrist that is 7 3/4 inches. There's the 7-inch mark, and there's the 8-inch mark. Okay, folks, I can't even run my own camera software. Sorry about that. I stopped it. Didn't mean to stop it. I meant to zoom back out. But here we go. There it is. Like I said, 7-inch. There's the 8-inch mark. It's on there. But this one turned out really, really good. It's not a hard weave. It's not a hard stitch. But it does take some time to do. Especially that stitching. But I'll give you one final look. Bring the light over here. But that is a stitched Widowmaker. Well, I appreciate you watching. Give us a like. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. Leave a comment below. Tell me what you think. And if you have any suggestions on any tutorials you'd like to see me do, let me know. But I'll end this one like I end them all. Keep it deep, keep it clean, and keep it tight. Happy weaving, folks.